A question that I hear a lot at Life Drawing is how much anatomy do we need to know as artists in order to draw the figure? And we can spend years studying human anatomy. We could spend a year just studying all the tiny bones in the hand or the parts of the head and the neck and shoulders. And we could go really deeply into the details of all of these bones and muscles and how they work together. But to describe and sketch the basic construction of a pose, the basic anatomy of a pose, we really only need three major parts. And I call this exercise the Big Three construction exercise. And that is the head, the rib cage, and the pelvis. These are the biggest parts of the body. They're the biggest statements. And if we can quickly sketch these three parts with the roughly accurate proportions and relationship to each other, and describe a little bit of their three-dimensional configuration perspective, that's going to give us a huge advantage when we're starting a drawing. And so this exercise is designed to just practice that part, just practice drawing these three parts in relationship to each other, and getting them roughly in the right place. It's not, the intention of the exercise is not to complete a figure drawing. It's just to practice getting these three parts in the right place, and that will help you in any figure drawing, a longer drawing, and develop your intuition for how these parts relate to each other. So first of all, we're going to use construction lines and construction shapes to create a simple description of these parts. So what that means is we're just going to use ovals. There's many ways that we could simplify these parts into basic construction, but just to keep things simple, we're going to use kind of egg-like ovals and circles, spheres, to describe them. So all we're going to use is oval shapes, and we're going to use simple construction lines like this to describe the way the parts are leaning side to side or forward and back as a 3D form. So for example, with this shape, we can see, let's imagine this is a rib cage. We can kind of imagine it's twisted slightly this way, and it's leaning up slightly, and it's facing, oh, you can't see it there. There we go. And it's facing out that way. So just these simple lines tell us a lot about the form. So we're going to use this kind of shape for the head, the rib cage, and the pelvis. So let me just demonstrate it here with this pose. So I'll start with the head, and normally I would do this quite lightly, very lightly and loosely, with a broad stroke. I'm going to draw a little bit darker for the camera, but it doesn't really matter because this is just an exercise. So here's the kind of egg for the head, and I'm going to give just a simple construction line. He's kind of looking down a little bit, something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then the rib cage. And this is kind of a profile view, so we might not see too much of the kind of center line, but we'll kind of do that. And then, let's see, the pelvis. Yeah, so and this is kind of, the pelvis is kind of tilted back a little bit. So maybe a little bit of the front, a little bit like that, tilted. Yeah, and that's really it. This is an exercise, so again, it's not a complete figure drawing. This would be like the start of a longer drawing, and normally I might kind of go over the top of this with some contour or some value, but it's worth just repeating this kind of over and over again with many poses, just to practice getting these relationships. So let's do another one. Okay. Again, this is kind of a profile view. You can see a little bit of the front there. And then here, yeah, the pelvis is, yeah, kind of back again, kind of more aligned with the head a little bit. So I'm looking at the vertical alignment of the shapes. I'm looking at the angles of the forms, and yeah, paying attention to what anatomy I can see underneath the skin. Depending on the pose, you may be able to actually see some of the outline of the rib cage or the pelvis, and on this kind of showing on the surface of the form, and so that can be very helpful for finding the form. Let's do one more. That one's kind of similar to the first one. Let's do this. And let's see. Okay, so yeah. And often it's not perfectly, measured and aligned with the pose. I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's almost a gesture, in that I'm pushing the pose a little bit because the tendency is going to be to straighten things out, to straighten these three parts and just stack them. And so I'm exaggerating a little bit because later layers will clarify the relationships, and often this light sketch at the beginning will kind of fade into the background. Let's see. Yeah, and that's really it. And I would encourage you to do this like just dozens of times, with as many poses as you can find. It's really, these three parts are so essential to telling the story of the pose that it's worth basically making it almost muscle memory of how they fit together. And this is the kind of, if you were to take this further, there's many different ways to think about it, to basically layer on further information, using different lenses of how we can see the figure. So for this pose, for example, I might use this as a starting point to layer on some of the contour, or to attach more construction. Let's see. And yeah, so I can even see that in my initial sketch, my head was too far up, and it actually kind of overlaps with the form of the rib cage. And so that's a tendency that I have with poses that are leaning, which is to kind of not see that overlap right away. Now I can see it because I'm adding on a bit more information, but that's okay. Like, that's just information that I can use next time to say, okay, I have a hard time seeing that kind of overlap, so I can practice that. Just try it again, maybe. I think we can see over here. Yeah. So there's my head again, and the rib cage actually overlaps. And then the pelvis is kind of down here. Yeah, so that really helps me understand for next time when I see a pose like this, how I can get a better starting point, which will help make the rest of the drawing much, much easier. So that is the big three construction exercise. It does take practice, but that's the point. It's an exercise, and it will reveal tendencies that you have, and until eventually it kind of becomes intuitive and muscle memory to be able to sketch the relationships between these parts. I find this a really helpful exercise at life drawing. If I'm not sure what else to do or how to start a pose, this is kind of a go-to way to start the pose that, once you practice it enough, you don't have to think too much about. So let me know if you try it in the comments, or if you have any other tips for this kind of starting point construction. And yeah, we will see you next time.